Hello, these are recordings of classes conducted at a world-class residential recovery centre here in Armidale, New South Wales. My name's Hartmut Günther and I'm fortunate enough to be able to facilitate these classes. So I hope you enjoy them.
It probably behooves you to acquaint yourself with nutrients and food, and that's what all this class is all about. Sort of, everyone's well acquainted with food, but not everyone, just because of the climate that we live in and our upbringing and all that sort of stuff, and the people we've met and what we're interested in and all that sort of stuff, knows about the nutrient density or the quality, so to speak, of the foods. So that's going to become, I'm biased, but I think that's extremely important, of course. But when you first start thinking like that, say you're walking down the aisle of Woolies and you're seeing all these foods, and initially, before you have that perspective of what's in those foods, you just see the foods. So, for instance, today, we're just finishing off with the protein. What I'm asking you to do, because protein is such an important thing, it is the only nutrient that contains nitrogen. And you need nitrogen to be able to build all your connective tissue and protein and enzymes and antibodies and cells and everything in your body. So it's a not negotiable nutrient. So that's that. But then the question arises, well, how much do you need during the day? And we've had young blokes in there, and I'm not saying that you blokes aren't young blokes. You do. But we've had
We're the oldest in the bunch.
No, come on, we're stickers, mate. We're here. We're all young for the take off and go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Can't handle it.
You can get quite evangelistic, particularly the guys about, building muscle mass and taking protein powders. And you've seen that. And I'm sure we've all been there to some degree ourselves. So you're going to go down roads like that. It's also important to have some knowledge about the amount of protein that you need. And then again, some of the young guys there, I've seen them, they'll eat like 15 egg whites. They'll buy eggs and they'll throw out the egg yolks and stuff like that because they think that, the egg whites are just protein and that's all they want. Well, it's just there's some real holes in the knowledge there. And if you can fill those holes with some appropriate health knowledge, then it'll serve you a lot better for the rest of your life. So, basic rule. So when you go walking down those aisles, you'll think, and I'm going to use this example of potato chips because I've actually prepared my own presentation like you guys have all done. So I've done one on energy, which is what we're going to lead into. So energy, of course, is the essential nutrient. All other nutrients fall below energy. If you don't have energy as a nutrient, forget it. You're dead in about 3 to 4 weeks. That's just how it works. So, but then protein is very close underneath or just behind energy. So you're walking down the aisle, you see some food, you see a bag of potato chips. Now, there's a lot of advertising. You've probably eaten potato chips before. I'm not judging. I'm not saying don't eat potato chips. I'm just giving you an example of a food. And you two may not eat potato chips. Maybe you do. And so there's another rule. I'm sort of interjecting all these little pearls of wisdom into my life. And one of those pearls of wisdom is that do not go shopping when you're hungry.
Yeah.
You've probably heard that too. So
no, I know. Very experience.
That bag of potato chips if you're hungry, will then seem a lot larger, and the gravitational pull towards it will be a lot stronger. So what I'm asking you to do is to start thinking initially it's in the forefront of your brain and it will seem like a lot of work to do, but look at the foods that you buy in regards also not just as a food but what they contain. So if you're going to buy a bag of potato chips, I'm asking you to ask the quick question, how much protein's in that bag of potato chips? And that gets really interesting then when you compare the amount of energy that's in that bag of potato chips compared to the protein. And we'll get onto that at the moment. In other words, yeah. So then answering the question, I've created the context there. How much protein do you need? So, Michael, how much do you weigh?
96 kilos.
96 kilo. So would you say that's your normal weight or preferred weight?
I'm probably 10 kilos over.
96 kilo, which makes it about 86 kilo, is your preferred weight, which is pretty much the same as me, actually. I'm 95 kilo at the moment too, and I should be, I can feel it. You can usually feel it in your gut because that's where you hold, it's a telltale sign. It's guys particularly, it sort of shows up there. So let's just work. Yeah, right. Same, particularly when you try to tie up your shoelaces. It gets 86 kilo. So according to the Australian RDI for protein, the rule of thumb there is about, you multiply that by 0.8. Anyone got a calculator there? No, I've got one. I'll get it out. And if you want an even greater rule of thumb, you can just multiply it by 1, which is easy to remember. So let's just say you're 86 kilos, your preferred weight, so you need about 86 grams of protein a day. Do you think you can remember that?
Yep, certainly can.
And if you're in recovery or you've got any of, I'm just going to flick over to this screen for a sec. If you've got any of those things going on in your life, I know I showed this to you last time, and if you can relate to any one of those, then you will be in the category of 1-to-1. In other words, if you are 86 kilo, you need about 86 grams of protein a day. Can you read that, or do you want me to read it out to you? Is it hard?
I can't read it.
It's a bit hard to read. Okay, so these are the points. And I'll just say right on the top, because I don't actually have that here. If you're in recovery, now you guys have been there a while, but if you're in recovery, you know what I mean, that's going to increase your protein requirement as well. So here, what increases your protein requirement? BMI is lower than or equal to 19. None of us are in that category. We're talking about people that carry no fat whatsoever, athletes. Second one, if exercise level is high. So if you start riding up that hill, Michael, 3 times a day, you will increase your protein requirement.
Yeah.
If chronic low-grade infection, inflammation, or allergy is present, you guys understand what that means, Graham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you may not even know that, but anyway, so that will increase it. If overall number of health symptoms is high, so say you have 1 or 2 health symptoms, big deal. But if you've got half a dozen, symptoms are a telltale sign that something's, your body's having to work pretty hard, either to fight off an infection or an allergy or something else, or whatever's going on. That will increase your protein requirements. If trauma means an accident, surgery, injury, chronic illness, or stress is present, it'll increase your protein requirement. If lean body mass is below minimum recommended lean body mass, that has to be calculated. I won't get into that. It's a bit more complicated. Just looking at you two guys, I don't think you're in that category. That's not a judgment, by the way.
Guarantee that.
The next mindfulness class is all about judgment, so make sure we all come. If mal, sorry, what was that?
Who's judging?
Yeah,
I was
right.
just laughing.
Good question. If malabsorption or maldigestion is indicated, i.e. as in celiac or SIBO, mal means not right, something's wrong. So you could be eating 3 T-bone steaks, 200-gram steaks a day, but if you're not able to digest them properly, or if you can digest it but you're not able to absorb it properly, and those things are indicated in celiac or SIBO. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, meaning simply that you've got bacteria in your gut where you're not meant to have bacteria. And that happens to people. And it can happen for various reasons. If age for a man or woman is over 70, luckily none of us are there yet. I'm getting close. But if you recall seeing the RDIs for protein, men over 70 are at the top. So you'd think, a guy's a bit older, he doesn't really need that much protein. Wrong. Pregnancy and lactation, that's pretty obvious. Okay, so that's the list. Is that okay? So those are the sort of things that will increase your protein. But I'm just implanting that little pearl of wisdom about 1-to-1. If you can tick any of those boxes in that list we've just read, you can use the formula 1-to-1. So Michael will need about 86 grams of protein. Graham, what's your ideal or preferred weight?
Yeah, about the same. I should be about 86, but I'm not.
Okay, all right, no worries. So there you have it. So you both need about 86 grams of protein. Then, and I won't go through it because we've already gone through that in the past. If you feel, let me know, we want to relive that, where to get the protein and how much you need, we can do that when there's some other members in the group. We can go back to that, unless you really want to do that now.
I've got a question, Bob.
Yep.
If you've got excess body fat,
yeah,
do you still need to eat as much protein, or do you get protein from burning the body fat?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that's why initially I asked you, what is your preferred weight? Now, to put it more technically, we calculate the protein requirements based on a thing called your ideal body weight. And there's a formula for that. And it's pretty close. We're all reasonably intuitive to what you would call your preferred weight. So let's just say your ideal body weight is 86 grams, 86 kilo, Michael.
Shit.
But say all of a sudden you spend 6 months at Freeman House, or you go off to a resort somewhere and you end up putting on 20 kilos and you're 106 kilograms. Does that change your protein requirement? I assume that's the essence of your question.
No, the question is, if I maintain the 86 kilo or my ideal body weight amount of protein that I need,
yeah,
will my need for protein burn or be used with the fat that I've got stored? Will that burning the fat, will that give me protein?
No.
No.
The simple
Okay.
answer is no, but there's a subtlety in your question that will actually become apparent when we go on to the energy. But let me just answer your question now without creating some mystery that you all have to wait for. It's quite a complex question, because you're asking about the interplay of protein and energy. That's what the essence of your question is actually asking there. So,
Okay.
and also you're asking, can you get protein from burning residual fat or excess fat in your body? I presume that's what you're asking as well.
Yes.
So the answer to the second question is no, emphatically no, because so let's just move in between here, fat and protein. Just stay fluid with these explanations because it'll start to make sense. There are 3 ways. There's 4. Well, there's actually 4. There is actually 4. There's actually 4 ways that you can get energy. And the one that you don't want to know about is alcohol. So it's interesting, if you're been consuming lots of alcohol, you get quite a good hit of energy from alcohol. That's why people's diets, when they're consuming lots of alcohols, go all over the place, because all the rules start changing. And so I must have done that subconsciously, because it reminded me of the alcohol. So, but let's just go with the other 3. And the other 3 are fat, carbohydrate, and protein. So the body, on an evolutionary way, is designed to extract and use energy from fat and carbohydrate. It's useful to know that what foods. Again, I'm asking us to learn more about how those 3 things are distributed amongst foods. And that's actually quite easy, because the law in nearly all Western countries, probably other countries now too, is that whenever you buy a food, except the fresh food, of course, anything that's packaged has to have a label on it. And it tells you how much fat, protein, and carbohydrate is in that food. So I'm encouraging you, initially, I know it seems like extra work and blah, 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 to start reading labels. It's really useful, and start getting your head around it, because it'll really help you. Because without being conspiratorial, if you believe the marketing only and the packaging of the food, it's not going to serve you well. Because some foods are absolute shit. They just contain rubbish. So no matter how good they look, how good they smell, and how good they taste, yeah. Is that the gardener out there, is it?
Someone back in
Right.
the veranda.
Yeah. We've got carpet cleaners in the place, doing the furniture and the floors and whatnot.
Oh, okay. So make sure they open the windows. Don't go straight in the room after it's been cleaned, because they're guaranteed to be using chemicals. I'm also a toxicologist. So,
Yeah.
fat, protein, carbohydrate, 3 sources of energy. The thing is, you don't want to get the energy from the protein. So it's important to get energy from fat or carbohydrate, particularly while you're eating protein. Otherwise, the body will start using protein as an energy source, and you don't want that. Why? Because of those 3 energy sources, only protein contains nitrogen. You need nitrogen, as I said before, to build your muscle, the amino acids, all that sort of stuff. So fat, so getting back to your question, Michael, fat does not contain anything in it that can, it doesn't contain any nitrogen.
It's not stored protein.
What's that?
It's only stored sugar, is it?
So
Fat is not stored protein.
No.
It's not stored protein. It's stored.
It's stored
energy.
fat. It's stored fat. So you can store sugar, you can store fat, and you can store protein. Your store of protein in your body is your muscle mass. That's your store.
Okay.
And if you go through a month, and this has happened throughout evolution, you might go through, not now, not in a Western world, but you'll go through it, you might not get any protein. It's quite possible, can't kill any animals, can't catch any animals, whatever. So your body starts catabolizing, which is a fancy word for eating your own muscle mass. So you will do that, which, by the way, happens in that whole list that I just went through. If you got
Yep.
caught in a bushfire and you got burns to a good amount of your body, say 30, 40% of your body, and you're in hospital, they cannot keep up on a drip giving you enough protein. Your protein requirements are then so high while you're healing from that burn that your body starts ripping into your muscle mass and just eating it up. So that's why you're in intensive care when you have those burns victims. It's a very serious thing. So that's just a severe example. I'm just adding a bit of depth in there. So muscle mass stores protein. Fat, your fat, that stuff that's just beneath your hands right now, Michael, and is your store of energy. So you would survive a while, and your body starts to eat. I'm using that word because eat means that it starts consuming that energy source. So it'll do that. Now, carbohydrate is an interesting thing. How much store of carbohydrate do you think you have?
I read about it the other, but I can't remember.
Have a guess. Graham?
How much storage?
Yeah, in your body right now of carbohydrate. Now you've got protein storage. Now you got fat storage. What about carbohydrate? 60%,
isn't it?
What?
60%?
Of your body mass?
Yeah.
Probably 30 at least, isn't it?
Don't your bones and marrow have a lot of carbohydrates in them? No?
They have. So what I'm actually asking, that is partially true, but what I'm asking is your storage. In other words, what storage do you have that you can tap into right now for energy? So if you had to go and do that walk again right now, Michael, because that is the first thing. You're not going to start breaking down fat if you go outside now and start walking. You won't, because you have carbohydrate reserve in your muscles and in your liver. But here's the thing. You only have about 20 minutes worth approximately. So if neither of you done any exercise today and you started walking outside, you've had your breakfast, whatever, and you will start burning up, it's called glycogen, your reserves of carbohydrate to some degree. If you heavily focus in carbohydrate, that might be a little bit higher, but that's a ballpark figure. Did you say something, Michael?
So you've got to do over 20 minutes before that carbo is depleted, and then you start burning fat.
That's correct. That is a very general figure. So don't take that as a gospel, but you've got an idea. And in actual fact, you've probably heard, like the guys in Tour de France, the guys that ride the bikes, pretty intense burning energy exercise. In the old days, meaning just a few years ago, there was that notion, and I'm sure you both heard of it, like it's called carb up. Like you eat a lot of carbs, like a big bowl of spaghetti the night before, like a marathon or something like that. Well, that whole thinking has changed. They're now working with burning fat in real time rather than just carbs. Now, carbs is because of the diet you guys are on there at Freeman House and me here at home, which is the antithesis or the opposite of a paleo diet. I'm not here recommending a paleo diet. I'm just saying that there are diets out there that have very little carbohydrate and have mostly fat and protein. There's another diet called the ketogenic diet, which is actually a therapeutic diet, which is used to actually control epilepsy. Very powerful. The Eskimos are basically on a ketogenic diet, 80% fat, 20% protein. That's the traditional Eskimos, at least, before Woolies moved up there.
Pretty cold.
Yeah. So you can survive. The original explorers that went up to the Arctic and met the Eskimos up there, they were just blown away that there was no carbohydrate, zero virtually in their diet. And it freaked them out because these white explorers would have to then eat copious amounts of fat, just fat, during the day to survive, and then every now and then a bit of protein. And by the way, I know I'm sort of introducing lots of sort of information here, but it sort of all ties in together. You cannot survive, this is useful to know, because the early explorers in Australia died because they did not know this. You cannot survive only on protein. It'll kill you within a few weeks. They called it the rabbit starvation diet. So there were plenty of rabbits around, and of course the indigenous people knew this, even though they hunted kangaroos, and the kangaroos are lean meat as well. But they knew this, that you can't do this. But the white settlers thought, oh, there's heaps of rabbits, we'll just kill the rabbits and eat the rabbits and we'll be fine. No. There's reasons. You got to have fat or carbohydrate. You can only have about 20, at the most, about 25% of your calorie intake coming from protein. Otherwise, your kidneys start shutting down. You cannot eliminate the nitrogen that we talked about. Protein's the only thing that's got nitrogen. Your urine is made from urea, which is the waste product of protein breakdown. So just in case you get into a survival situation, don't think you can just live on protein. So if you only have rabbits, make sure you eat their brains, their eyes, their organs, everything. Because then, which is what indigenous cultures do, and which is what animals do too. They'll go straight to the liver. So get back. It's a problem when we have hunger. It's not a problem, but because it's useful to be able to bring in this knowledge, particularly when we have outrageous hunger, because it can make a difference in survival.
I'm hungry now. I'm talking about this food. I want to eat something.
I want to burn some fat, so
Okay, well, that's the energy thing. So have I answered Michael's question?
You have.
Yes. Oh, good. So you need both, but you need them you need the energy from the fat and the carbohydrate, but you also need protein, and you need them in the right proportions. So somehow in answering your questions, we've actually answered all of those things. We've touched on all those things.
So it's okay for me to eat Dipper's chips when he cooks them? Just a little small amount.
It's such a wild thing, nutrition. I tell you, it's a weird thing too. The more you know, the weirder it gets. So it's like, at some point, you just have to leave people alone. If that's what you want to eat, well, go ahead, bloody well eat. It's just like
no saturated fat's not good for you.
So that's a discussion we haven't had, and I think Dean was going to. Maybe you can give Dean, when you see him, a bit of a nudge and say his next talk was actually going to be on fats, which is a huge talk as well. So if we get, we've pretty well covered protein to a large extent, and we're just about to go into energy. So when you see Dina, without putting any pressure on him, is he okay? Is he doing all right?
Yeah, I don't think he's travelling that well at the moment. He seems to just facial expressions and that, and mannerism. But he hasn't said anything. I know he's worried about his sister.
Is he?
Back over.
He's not well?
Yeah, had been. No, she's in New York and they want to come back home with their kids, but the coronavirus has stopped.
Yep.
So
not much you can do about that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we can just look after each other. You can't force anyone to talk about things. But one thing I have noticed over the years of being in recovery, sometimes it's quite common to go through a sort of an up and down phase. Initially, it's all roses when you first come. Then you sort of ease into it. And then you could, at some point, you may go into a down period. Anyone. And that is because, and Graham's brought this up, if you know, the 12 steps of AA and all that sort of thing, there's some steps in there that really ask you to take stock. And when you start doing that, it's a cat amongst the pigeons. There's no doubt about that. Things get stirred up. You're confronted with your own demons to some degree. Your mood changes, all sorts of things. So it's a storm that you have to ride out. The unfortunate thing is, if you bail at that point, it's not a good thing, because you need to come back out the other end where you've been through that in this safe environment I'm talking about. And then you're better equipped to, because the world out there is it's a bit different than when you guys checked in. It's pretty strange. There's some unusual things going on out there. So you want to use this time, same with me, same with all of us, to make ourselves as strong and resilient and healthy as we possibly can. So.
I really need to go to the toilet. I'll be back.
Yeah.
Directly.
Go for it. So, Graham, anything you want to ask in more personally, even about your own health, or are you happy, or do you need to? Because, we haven't really talked about it much, getting blood tests and making sure other things, or even psychological things.
I've put on a lot of weight in the last sort of 18 months. I'm about 20 kilos overweight.
Yeah.
Michael just mentioned he was about 96. Well, I'm edging 106.
Okay.
And for me being 6 feet, 183 centimetres tall, my BMI is way over the top. I should be about 80. I think it was between 80, about 86 kilos I should be, optimally.
So you're probably up around, you're at least between 25 and 30. You might even be edging over 30 in the BMI.
I think I'm about 27 or 28, yeah.
27, 28, okay. So, all right. So you're concerned about that?
Yeah, I'd love to lose it.
Well,
it just seems to stay on me.
Yeah.
I walk around a lot, but I'm looking forward to getting back into the gym when they open.
Which I think might be this week, isn't it? Or next week?
Oh, I don't know. I heard.
Yeah. The gym, I'm going to show you a slide in a moment. It's a little bit shocking, but you have to do the balance of eating and exercise. It's a balance.
I'd like to find that balance. I know protein's important, but trying to, the chef feeds us too well.
I've heard that complaint quite a bit, and I've had some of Pridip's food. Is it still Pridip there?
Sorry?
Is Pridip still there? He's the chef?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you call him something else, Dip or something, do you?
I just call him chef.
All right. That's a sign of respect. That's good.
Yeah, I address him as chef.
Yeah.
He feeds us up. He's the chef.
So, look, I'm not going to gloss it over, because I'm not exempt either. So, but it's weight loss. The old thinking only took two things into account: the amount of food that you ate and the amount of exercise that you had. And there was that equation: energy in equals energy out, or energy out will consume energy you put in. It turns out that is really not true for most people. And particularly in this culture, this westernized culture, and meaning that there are confounding factors like medication. So if you are on any medication, not all medications, but some medications promote weight gain. Did you know that?
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by outside. There's someone talking really loud. Can you say that again?
Okay.
There's,
So, if you're on medication, any medication, some medications will promote weight gain.
okay.
The meaning. Are they going to shut up out there?
I don't know. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can. Not as loud as you,
Yeah.
but it does
I'm
help.
going to shut it.
Yeah, shut the door. I was going to suggest maybe shut the door. Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah. Do you remember when, in actual fact, you brought this up, the listening thing in our mindfulness class? Remember that?
Yeah.
And I didn't get actual time to actually go into it in detail with you, but there's this book I'm reading. You might actually find it quite interesting if you're into that sort of thing, called The Distracted Mind. It's a really book. I'm only just starting to get into it, and at some point I've got a couple of paragraphs there outlined to read to you during the mindfulness class. But you just manifested the exact thing that they talk about. It's an evolutionary thing. So we can be distracted from the top down, meaning our own thoughts and things like that. But there's also what's called a bottom up distraction. And you just manifested that perfectly, meaning that I'm talking away and I'm expecting you to be listening to me, but you hear this other noise on the outside. So you cannot help it. Your mind will go to that other noise. It's an evolutionary thing. It's like, it could be a tiger, it could be something else. So it's like we're wired for that. So
Great train,
so I'm not I'm just saying go easy on yourself. I wouldn't be able to do it either. And you can't, by the way, you can't pay attention to two things at once. Not possible. Medication. If you're on medication, so we're getting sort of personal here. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but some medications promote weight gain. So my next question is, are you on any medication?
Yeah.
How many?
The only thing I take is omeprazole.
And what is that
which
for?
is for gastric reflux.
Ah, the reflux one. Okay.
It's a proton pump inhibitor.
I know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
That's oh my God. I have to be careful what I say because we're recording these classes. So I'm not allowed to start bashing drugs. But it's in the top 5 category, the top 5 drugs on this planet. One of them is that drug, proton pump inhibitors. Usually symptomatic relief from reflux. That's what it's designed for. And there's a medical reason for that, because if you keep having reflux, it can damage your esophagus, and that can have nasty consequences. But the key point and sorry, I don't mean to start bashing it, but you don't want to be on that forever. That is for sure, because that will cause downstream adverse effects in your digestive capacity in your body, because it's blocking acid. Hey?
I've been on it for about 20 years.
Yeah, well, let's change that. let's maybe no one's talked to you about it like I'm talking to you now.
No one.
No. So first of all, the question, there's a very small amount of people, and usually for a very small amount of time, that would require you or them to be on that medication. And there are reasons. So what you have to understand, Graham, please, I'm not trying to force this on you, but it's a symptomatic relief. It's addressing the symptom. That's it. Only the symptom. Nothing else. It's not addressing the cause. So some causes of reflux are difficult. I'm sort of focusing in now on you personally a little bit here, just to help you with this. Because don't think just because you've been on it for 20 years that if you decide to try to wean off it or change something in your life, that it won't have a beneficial effect. It will have a dramatic beneficial effect, particularly in regards to digesting protein. Protein is one of the few nutrients that begins digestion in the stomach, and you have to have good stomach acid to be able to start digesting the protein. Really important. And if you can't digest protein properly, you're not going to feel satiated. So you can start getting the gist of these conversations we're having here, that everything ties around and interconnects with each other. So if you are eating too much food, it's usually, well, there's several reasons, but one of the reasons is that because you're hungry. You're actually hungry. You've actually got something inside of you that says, eat food. That's very difficult to ignore and resist. So there's only two of those things. We talked about fats, proteins, carbohydrates. Only two of them will satiate you. Do you know what satiate means?
Not really, no.
It means satisfy your hunger.
Okay. Right.
Now, we've all had this experience. You eat a nice bowl of pasta, pretty much all carbohydrate, mostly, with a nice tomato sauce. I'm not saying it's not nice. I love it. But it's pretty much all carbohydrate. You'll have a nice, generous bowl. You'll feel okay. You'll feel full after that meal. You'll go away, do your things. Guess what? There's a high probability that in about an hour, you'll start feeling hungry again. You'll start wanting to snack on something. That does not happen to that degree if you eat protein and fat. Both protein and fat have mechanisms that go to the brain and the gut and all the cells in your body that satiate you. Satiate means, in this sense, satisfy your craving for hunger, satisfy your hunger craving.
I have heard that. I've heard that many a time regarding protein. It'll keep me fuller longer.
Yeah, well, that's right. So when you eat the big bowl of pasta, you will be full too. So one way that we're satisfied is called the stomach distension. So it's a mechanical thing. So your stomach actually distends, and it sends these messages to your brain, and the message goes to the brain, stop eating. You feel full. That's a normal thing. And you can do that with water. You can do that. You can have a massive bowl of salad and you'll fill up. These talks are making us all hungry. Luckily, there's only 7 minutes to go, and then we can all run off to the kitchen, because that's exactly where I'll be going. I love my bananas in the morning. So, if you can just take that point in, Graham, because it all ties in together. So you've expressed some concern that you're putting on weight and you want to know how to lose weight. So I'm here to giving you some information that it's not as simplistic as going to the gym and start burning off stuff. Because does that make sense? I was just going to show you one slide then, and I might just do that in a moment. But
yeah, good.
And then we were talking. Do you mind me talking about the reflux in front of Michael?
No.
Oh, I got reflux too, mate.
You got it too.
So Graham just mentioned that he's on a medication to control the symptoms of reflux. So I was just launching into a conversation about some of the downsides of, well, not so much taking that medication, but the downsides of what that medication does to you. And what that medication does, it suppresses acid production in your stomach. So, and I was just talking with Graham saying that when you do that, you're inhibiting your digestion of protein to some degree, because the protein has to be kick-started in your stomach. Then it goes down to it does more digestion and absorption. And then we were talking about the fact that if you are constantly hungry and snacking, which will lead to weight gain, that you must eat fat and or protein. The carbohydrate will not satisfy you long term. So you will be constantly going through a roller coaster ride of snacking and not snacking, particularly if you're not busy, you don't have a lot to do, if you have boredom, things like that. So the answer to your question, Graham, there's many things, and I'd like to, if you can bring that question back, particularly next week when we dive more into energy, I'll fill in some of the other strategies that you can use. I'm not saying don't go to the gym and work out. Definitely, that's part of the thing. And as we've already mentioned today, and that was Michael's point, that you will start burning fat after about 3 days. I don't know why. It takes about 3 days for your metabolism to change in your body, switch over to fat-burning metabolism, unless you it takes about 3 days, unless you starve yourself for a day, and then it will kick in within 24 hours, but you don't do that. So I'm not suggesting you do that. So what I'm trying to say is that if you want to start using exercise as one of them, there's only one, there's many ways to start reducing your fat, your weight, you need to aim for being consistent over, and what then your body will think, okay, he's doing this now for 3 days, let's change some things. And this is on a cellular level. So your body will start. So particularly if you start getting to the point where you can exercise longer than, as we were said before, 20 minutes, if you can get, for instance, and the only thing you even need to do, you can do anything you like, but just walking will satisfy this requirement. So if you can get to a point where you start walking more than half an hour and you start heading towards, and you can do this, you can spread this up throughout the day. It doesn't have to be all at one time, but sometimes it's useful to do it at one time. If you're getting up to 45 minutes and even an hour, you will, and you do that consistently, after the third day, you will start losing weight. Absolutely. That's easier said than done with any of these things. But now, please bring this back next week when we go more into energy. We didn't even get a chance to go into any of the energy side, but this will really feed in, and then with the medications as well. Some of the other people there, particularly some of the antidepressants, if you're on antidepressants, or even some of the anti-anxiety pills or other medications, absolutely promote weight gain. So it's good to know that, because it'll upset you when you start doing all the right things. Oh, Hart told me to go and walk for an hour and cut my meal portion size down, which I haven't told you yet, but that's one thing. And the, and
I thought about there's different sized plates in that dining room out there. I was going to go and get the little 8-inch plate and say, this is my plate, that's it. Don't give me your bloody big 12-inch plate. You fill it up.
Have hit the nail right on the head. You've got to be able to trick your mind. As we
that's
all
all
know,
they've got little plates.
Yeah.
They're not much bigger than a bread and butter plate. That's their meal plates.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
So it's smaller meals.
And according to the principle of the Leaning Tower of Pizza, you can only pile things so high before the whole thing falls over. So that's spot on. Anyway,
can I just ask one question?
Absolutely.
Relating to both of us, with the reflux. Does reflux mainly happen when you've eaten too much and your stomach acid's built up, and then that little valve in your esophagus isn't working properly, so it comes up. So if you don't eat as much, even though I know that when I eat certain foods, I get reflux more than I do with other foods.
Yeah.
As in tomato, capsicum, onion sometimes, or white onion.
Yeah.
So if I don't eat as much of those foods, as in larger proportion, and don't fill myself right up on that, well, that's counterbalance the reflux.
Yeah. Are you on medication for reflux, Michael?
I've got medication, but I only take it when I need it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good. So that's a better way to go, by the way, Graham. If you want to start weaning yourself off, only take it when. I'm not qualified to tell you to stop taking that medication, but you can work out strategies by listening to this group and working with your doctor and all that sort of stuff. So that's a good way to do it. So the quick, simple, although there never is a quick, simple, there is a simple answer, but a quick answer. There are things that promote reflux. Some of them are the two things you just mentioned, Michael. One of them is that you actually just mechanically distend the stomach. In other words, there's too much food in there. So there's that sphincter you're talking about. Sphincter just is a technical name for a muscle that will close up that the thing from going back up the esophagus. So that will do that. The other thing is the what's in the food that you eat. So fat there's no beginning of digestion of fat in the stomach. It has to pass through the stomach and go into the small intestine, where all sorts of other things, the bile's secreted and blah, blah, blah. Only protein basically is started to be digested in the stomach. So then one of the things people say, well, if you eat too much fat, that will cause reflux. So there's some truth in that as well. And the other thing that you were alluding to too, and this is a personal thing, some people can eat chilies all day long or spicy food. I
can eat chilies. Yeah, chilies are okay.
Yeah, but some people, the spiciness of the food or something else, there's some ingredient in the food, not just fat or the quantity. Yeah, that's right. Something quite, there's something in there, the nightshade family, that might cause a problem as well. But here's the thing. It's a bit like a catch-22 or a vicious circle. As we increase weight, now you might have seen the extreme example of this is a pregnant woman. Lots of pregnant women have issues with reflux, and that is a mechanical thing. In other words, there's pressure from below your stomach, and the pressure can be from a new child growing there, or it can be your own fat. Right.
Or your bowel.
Well, right. If you're constipated, that will contribute to that as well. Absolutely. So, but don't underestimate that if you're carrying an extra 10 to 20 kilo, do you know that bottle of water behind you? There on the back, that's 20 kilo bottle of water. That's a hell of a lot.
A bag of cement.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Bag of cement.
I got a bag of cement. I'm 20 over, mate.
So you can imagine there's mechanical pressure coming up.
Shit.
So it's like, well, where do you start? Where do you start with all of this? So do you focus on the reflux? Do you focus on the weight gain? Do you focus on the protein? So you don't just do one. You have to do them all together. You have to get a balance to do it. Start chipping away at each one at the same time. There's another thing called a hiatus hernia. Now, that also contributes to reflux. That's rare. That's an actual anatomical thing. You've both heard of hernias?
Yep. Had one.
Yeah, where did you have it?
Right there.
Yeah, that's called the inguinal hernia. I had one of those too. It's common in men. Well, in actual fact, women don't get that at all. But they have umbilical hernias, which is around the belly button and stuff like that. But there's another hernia that we can all have. It's up here, up just under. It's where the diaphragm is. So you have what's called the diaphragm between your thorax up here
Yeah.
and your gut.
Got one.
Yeah. Have you got a hiatus hernia?
I think so.
How do you know?
I had a endoscopy years ago. I've had a few of them.
Aha, that might be why you've been on the reflux thing for so long.
Well, the whole.
Yeah. Well, what happens is your stomach pushes up through your diaphragm. Your diaphragm gets a tear in it. That's what the hiatus hernia is. And so your stomach is meant to be sitting below the diaphragm. But in people who have a hiatus hernia, the stomach can come up. And then if you imagine the stomach's like a football, then it starts squeezing the stomach, the diaphragm and all that sort of stuff. So that's a tricky one. That's an anatomical thing, Graham. You might want to confirm whether you've still got that. I know it's not a nice procedure to have an endoscopy, so I don't know how you want to tackle that. Look, I'm just focused on maybe doing what we can to minimise your dose of the PPI. That's what I'm just trying to do here. So I'm glad you told me that, because that's obviously a more difficult thing to deal with, because they just don't do operations to heal that hernia, whereas on Michael's inguinal hernia they do. But yeah, we'll need to figure that out.
They did it. That keyhole surgery bit.
Did you say they did that?
No, I've heard they can. Is that?
You mean?
I'm going to get going, Hart.
No sweat. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll see you this week. Thank you.
Do you mean for the hiatus hernia?
Yeah, I've heard. Is that one of the?
I haven't heard
methods
that.
of?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a conversation that you can have with your doctor. It's a legitimate conversation to ask your doctor, do I still need to be on this reflux tablet? That's one thing. Second thing is, they've obviously then, now that you've told me that, put you on that because of they discovered, if indeed they have discovered that. So you just want to verify. Been a long time ago, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 15 years or more.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So a couple of things we need to do there. You okay? Shall we leave that?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
We're going out, Sean.
I know. Go and have some fun. You're going to the Blue Hole. It's a great walk.
Blue Hole. I haven't been there, so it should be good.
Yeah. Have some fun. Go for a walk. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you next Wednesday. And
thank you, mate.
Yeah. No,
have a good week.
Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, these bloody things.
Sorry to make it with that water bottle, but it brings home the message because it's about the same weight.
Yeah, it's the water bottle. It's a shocker. Let's straighten this up.
Okay, see you later. Thanks. Take care.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers.